I go from the side towards the middle across and take some big shavings out.
Andreas Hudelmayer shapes the front of a new violin.
I go sort of row by row in order to keep an overview of which wood I want to keep and which one wood I want to part with.
This is a piece of ambrosia maple. And you've got this figurine in the wood. And that actually, I believe, is caused by a bug or a worm. You can see the wormholes in it.
Luthier Victoria Hurley at work on her latest guitar.
I have the gun drill marked, so I know when it's going to come out the other end.
Christopher Bayley drills a piece of African blackwood for a set of uillean pipes. Adam Doughty rasps a calabash, tuning the sound hole of a kora he's building.
Calabash is a large pumpkin-like vegetable. Most kora players like to have instruments around about 45 to 50 centimetres across. That's the size of calabash we start with.
Ever since my dad made the cello that I still play, I've been intrigued by people who create beautiful instruments from hunks of timber, sheets of leather and bits of metal. How do they do it? What are they aiming for? And what drives them to do it? My first port of call is to Andreas Hudelmayer, who makes violins, violas and cellos in his small workshop overlooking Clerkenwell Square in London, high walls dripping with tools and bits of wood tucked in everywhere, waiting to be transformed.
This is maple from Bosnia. This will become the back of my next violin. It's got a strong flame. It looks like lines that go across the wood. It's the way the wood fibres reflect the sunlight.
And this is what you're drawn to, is it? It's because you're going to create something very beautiful out of purely the aesthetic look of this particular piece of wood.
Yes, once the wood has been shaped to a back and I'm starting the varnishing process, all this flame will become enhanced.
Now here, just lying on your workbench, is what looks like either the front or the back of one in progress.
This is the front of a violin, alpine spruce. It's been cut out already from the board and I've started to take some wood away from the edges. So the edges are already starting to be thinner, whereas the middle is still thick.
And we can see the marks of your tool here. What tool is it that you're using? This is probably the wrong word, but a chisel?
This is gouge.
Oh, gouge, great word. And you're just doing this by eye, by feel, are you? How do you know when to stop?
Well, first I work by eye until I think I'm getting close enough. We're using basically the same techniques as I did 300 years ago.
It's a curved surface, isn't it? You're not going straight across. It's not like a guitar, which is just flat.
No,
this is creating something.
This is what we call an arch, and that's actually quite important for the acoustics and the feel of the violin, the way it plays and the way it sounds.
But there are so many bits on your work surface here of violins, scrolls, the backs, the fronts. There's so much to it. But what was it that drew you into wanting to make instruments in the first place? Was it violins? Was it cellos?
I play the cello, so really it was the love of the cello that drew me into this business. And I did like spending time in our basement putting pieces of wood together.
It's very solitary.
It is very solitary, and that experience that I could spend time by myself and be quite happy was in a way more important than skills I might have had or not.
I mean, you say that, but here we are standing in this just wonderful workshop that you've got. It's very small, but it's just so packed with all sorts of things. It has this wonderful atmosphere to it. And when I watch you doing your, just even that little bit of carving that you were doing, I think that must be such a mindful process, really. It's almost like a meditative process, is it?
Yeah, definitely is that aspect of it, and I do enjoy that. And when you get into the right atmosphere and concentration, that is a good feeling, and yeah, it's good for the work when everything flows.
Jens Lynen, a young Belgian violinist, has dropped into Andreas's workshop to try out one of the finished violins.
You want that warmness there, but at the same time it has to have... You want it to be able to do everything. I have to say I'm very impressed by this instrument.
Just looking at this violin, it's absolutely beautiful. Looking at the back of it, having seen the bare wood that we were looking at, the one that you're making, I mean, those flames of that maple are still gloriously coming through in this varnishing process, which has also made it look like it's been played for at least 100 years. The instrument looks old. Is that something that you aim for?
I'm antiquing the instrument. Basically, I'm making it look old, roughly 300 years old, because that's the age most desirable Cremonese instruments are. This is a copy of Stradivarius from 1715. Once it's varnished, I'm taking quite a lot of varnish off. I'm putting dents in.
I can see marks. Almost looks like
lots
you've really gone at it, distressing it.
Scratches. All the edges are now soft.
And the corners of
the corners are rounded over. All this would have happened in 300 years' time.
And is there a notion that older is better? And is that true when it comes to violins, you know?
Well, there definitely is that notion that old violins are better. It's not necessarily true. They are fantastic instruments from around 300 years plus ago. And some of them, naming Strad and Guarneri del Gesù and a few other names, there are some incredible instruments there. Those are the ones that we're copying. I think certainly in the last 20 years, violin making has come a long way. We've done more research and making has much improved, so that there is now quite a large overlap. I would be absolutely sure that there are a lot of modern instruments that are better than quite a lot of Strads.
Someone else who's impressed by Andreas's work is the great cellist Raphael Wallfisch, who owns and plays one of Andreas's cellos. He dropped it off recently for a service, and he's called by the workshop to pick it up.
When I was 20, there was a strong prejudice against new instruments. How could you possibly play on a new instrument? Nowadays, many, many more people are playing on new instruments, and it's not just because we can't afford the old ones, it's because we realize that there are fantastic makers like Andreas who can achieve things very, very similar to the old antique violins and cellos.
Yeah, I would completely agree with that.
As a cellist playing solo, the A string is very much a question that we need, so that if we play something like that, which is very commanding, and your presence needs to be felt. Then the other most important thing as a cellist is the C string, because we are a bass instrument basically. If you have something like you want to feel that you can really sink into that and enjoy the bass quality, that it's one voice across this huge range.
Yeah, you can trust it.
I think it's clear that both of us are fans of new instruments.
While Andreas Hudelmayer copies Strads, seeking to recreate their perfection, Victoria Hurley is developing the guitar, changing it quite drastically.
This one is, I call it a CX523, and what's different about it is we've got, instead of the sound hole in the middle at the front of the guitar, we've got it on the upper bout, on the rib.
I've never seen that before.
And a little aperture underneath the fretboard here as well.
She works out of her guitar shop in Orpington, Kent, so customers passing through can see her finished products as well as the work in progress. Her workshop is a very small area at the back of the shop, from where she's working on some big design ideas.
When you've got an aperture, you can tune that to give you a fundamental frequency to the guitar.
So this hole that we're looking at, the size of that hole is crucial.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
so here we've got the hole on the side, so when
On
you're
the
sitting with your
side.
guitar, it's actually the sound, in effect, is coming up to your chin.
Exactly, that's exactly the point, yeah. So the person who's playing it is getting the benefit of the sound.
Ah. So is this actually quite a radical design, what you're doing here?
I'm not the first person to have done it. I'm not the first person to have experimented with it. But it is new and it is modern.
Lovely. Yeah. That is gorgeous.
Yeah, it sounds good from here.
Yeah, it sounds good from here too.
Well, I started playing guitar when I was about 17, and I spent more time taking them apart and putting them back together than I did playing them. And then I started looking into the history of the guitar. When I was about 19, by this point I read the history of Fender, and that was the first time I sort of realised that there were people out there making these things and innovating and bringing the guitar forward. Fast forward about 6 years after that, that's when I enrolled in London Metropolitan course for guitar making. So I've gone and done a degree in guitar.
So you've made that decision that this is what you're going to do for your living. I mean, that's quite a big decision, isn't it? It's not a career that a lot of people choose to make instruments.
No, it isn't. I mean, I did make that decision at around about 19. It just took me a while to find out how and where you can train to do it. Yeah, and I think a lot of people wouldn't really know that you could have a guitar made as well. Sometimes people come in and are like, oh, well, because you don't really think of where they come from and who might be putting them together. So,
well, that's another thing, isn't it? I mean, how do you compete in this world where you can just go and get a guitar for, I don't know, 50 quid or something?
You can get a guitar for 50 quid.
And here you are doing your exquisite, thinking it all through, and then you've got to sell that idea to people.
It's not too difficult when you start going through what type of wood we're using, why we're using it. The £50 guitars aren't really made of solid wood, so then obviously these are. The amount that goes into one of these, and I think when you pull it off the wall, I hope next to a £50 guitar that you can hear the difference as well. You can feel it when you play it. Okay, so I've got a rosewood fretboard here, and in order to install the metal frets we need to first cut slots along its length. It's actually, you have to be accurate to within 1/10 of a millimetre on these, because when you actually obviously touch the string to the top of that fret, if they're out of position, say if they're too close to the bridge, notes are going to come out sharp, and if they're too far away, they're going to come out flat. So you've got to be really, really accurate with these. I'm a maker, not a guitarist.
So are you making them to put into your shop, or are you making them because people are commissioning them from
I
you?
mostly make for to order. What one person's looking for isn't what another person's looking for. So when you build to order, you're doing it something very specific.
So do you need to know how their playing style and a bit about...
you need to know everything, pretty much. You sit.
That's a hell of a responsibility.
It's worked out, really well so far. It's just when you meet someone, you kind of got to make sure you're on the same page as them. So if I say, it's trebly, someone else is going to have maybe a different idea of what that is. So when you sit down and talk to somebody, what I think my job is to first of all kind of make sure that we're talking about the same thing when we're using those words, because my idea and their idea isn't necessarily the same.
Does that thereby mean that you've actually made some guitars that you don't really like the sound of at the end of the day?
Me? No. I've always liked the sound of mine.
Because I'm just thinking of, like you say, somebody's idea of treble is different to yours.
For me, it's about getting their sound. It's not about getting my sound at this stage. When I build for someone, I'm more concerned about hitting on what they expect. I would be far more disappointed with a guitar I thought was fantastic that they hated and didn't want to take home.
Yeah.
So my job is to sort of understand what they want and build something that delivers on that.
And it must feel amazing when you do, when you actually say, here it is.
It's kind of, you get very nervous. I get very nervous when people come in to collect, because it's the first time they're hearing it. So I'm nervous on the one hand and then excited on the other.
And to date, it's all gone well?
To date, it's all gone very well. No, everyone's been really, really happy. The feedback's been really, really good. Very happy customers so far.
I make a small hole in the top and bottom of the calabash and one for the sound hole. And now I have to get the exact shape and size of those holes using a rasp.
Adam Doughty lives in Wales and makes West African koras, so he makes regular trips to Senegal to source the materials he needs.
It's made from a calabash with a animal skin stretched over it. That provides the sound box, the resonator. There's a long neck attached to that. The strings go from there over a tall bridge, which is resting on the animal skin, in two parallel planes, left and right. There are two handles, which you hold with the second and third and fourth finger of each hand and play the strings with the first finger and thumb of each hand.
The kora is the instrument of the Jali, the traditional bards of West Africa, great musical dynasties who've passed repertoire down for generations. So it's interesting that a European has chosen to immerse himself in that great tradition.
I first heard the kora in the early 80s and became a massive fan of the music. My first attempt was to make one using a fiberglass calabash, which I made. At that point, I hadn't even held one. It was a disaster. A bit after that, I went to see Dembo Conte Calcichiati play, and they were selling their instruments because it was the end of their tour. So I bought one and recorded some of the LPs I had on a dictaphone, slowed it down, learned a few tunes phrase by phrase by phrase. The following year, Dembo come back. I went to see him. He was quite impressed I'd managed to learn in that fashion at all. I got him to record a few tunes as slow as he could play them and went away and did the same again. Then I went and stayed with him. That gave me a big insight into the family life of kora players here in Africa. When I met other people in the UK who had koras, they often wanted for me to show them little bits that I knew, so I started doing that. And then I'd always been interested in instrument building. The big break really was in 2007 when I was in Ziguinchor and I met Aliou Gassama. He's a great player and teacher, but he's a really fine maker. I spent some time with him and that really moved my kora making up.
I've just had a CD sent through from one of my customers. He's in Australia. I've got other customers in Japan and America, as well as France.
So you've got a truly international
So
brand
it is global, yes. It is a global business.
If Europeans are playing the kora, why shouldn't Japanese musicians be drawn to the instruments Christopher Bayley is making in Redhill, Surrey? These bagpipes are the sophisticated chamber instrument of Ireland, fiendishly complicated to make and very demanding to play.
The bag, in the case of the Irish pipes, a bellows is used to fill it.
So you've got these bellows strapped around your middle.
The chanter, which has a double reed, a bit like a large oboe reed, allows you to play the melody. Then the other thing it has in common with other bagpipes is it has the drones. These sound just a single note and give you the background harmony. There's another set of pipes on top here with keys that are called regulators, and these are used to play a chordal accompaniment along with the chanter, so to give it even more rhythm.
This particular reel is a tune called Speed the Plough. Drones first of all. The piper supplies the air for the pipes by pumping the bellows. Constant pressure must be kept on the bag. In the meantime, both hands are occupied on the chanter playing the tune.
One of the greatest exponents of the uillean pipes is Liam O'Flynn, here revealing the mystery of how to play this musical octopus.
And then when the piper wants to throw in an odd chord and a bit of accompaniment, he's using the sort of heel of his wrist to touch regulator keys. If I want to vary the tone of the instrument, the chanter is really constantly being removed from the knee. There's just a very slight movement, the chanter up and down, if you like, on the piper's thigh.
Fill the bellows, squeeze the bag, take up the chanter, finger the notes, bounce it on your knee, bring in the drones, sometimes the regulators, so there's not much to it then.
We've come out of your house, we've gone down a little footpath. Oops.
Into the workshop, which has been described as a bit Hobbit-like.
Look at this in here. Wow. You've got a very beautiful looking lathe.
Yes. This one is about 1850, 1860. This one is used for doing highly decorative work. And at the moment I've got an order for a set where the customer wants all the mounts on it to look like acorns.
Yeah.
I'm practising at the moment with this piece of wood I've got
getting
here.
there. It's beautiful.
Getting the crisscross pattern.
So this must be a joy, because this is really where you get creative on this with this
This
lathe.
one is yes. It will turn round, it will turn oval, it will turn at angles, it will do all sorts of things a modern lathe won't do.
On the table behind, you've got a few things laid out here. Bits of chanter, which I can now recognise, bits of drone pipes, presumably, bits of piping. In the middle, something, this looks like a tusk, is it?
It's a tusk.
And it's incredibly heavy.
That's right. Elephant ivory, of course, is no longer really a viable option, but what I have here is some ivory from an extinct species, from the mammoth. This is mammoth ivory.
Wow. Where do you get mammoth ivory from?
Well, I would say mammoths, but it comes from Alaska, Siberia. It's dug out of the tundra and out of the ice as it slowly retreats in the summer months, either by the Inuits or the Siberian reindeer herders.
And what are you going to turn it into? Which bit of the instrument?
It goes on to the mounts. The mounts serve two purposes. A, they're decorative, but they also add strength to the weaker parts of the instrument.
Also on here we have the all-important bag where the air from the bellows gets pushed into.
This is calf skin, cut from the best part of the hide, folded in half and then saddle stitched.
Saddle stitched in a way that doesn't let any air out. So that's
right.
quite an intricate task in itself, isn't it?
It is, yes, and all is used to make a hole through the binding strip and the bag itself. Then a thread is pulled through.
You're going to tell me you've made the thread as well, aren't you?
Yes, I made the thread as well. Yes.
There's nothing in here that hasn't been made by your fair hand.
It's on a wire. The wire is smaller diameter than the thread, so that the wire goes through the hole, and when you pull the thread through, it completely fills the hole to make it airtight.
Wow. I mean, given with your expertise, Chris, I mean, you could be making anything, but you chose the pipes. Why the pipes?
Well, I wanted a set for a start. I mean, when I first discovered the pipes, it was the Northumbrian pipes, and it took me 4 years to get my hands on a set of those. Such was the waiting list and the fact there were only two makers. So with the Irish pipes, the sound is so captivating that the quickest and only way I could really get a set was to make my own.
And you had to start by making the tools
And
first.
the first thing you do is, yes, having found the set to measure, is then make the tools to suit it, because you can't just go into the local ironmongers and buy them. And there are just so many different operations required that it just doesn't become boring, it just becomes interesting.
I mean, given that this is such a complicated instrument to make and to play, what's your market? Are there enough people out there wanting to play the pipes to keep you in bread and tea?
Yes, I have more orders coming in than I can cope with. All I do is add names to a waiting list and I will contact the person when I'm ready to start.
What sort of budget would I need was I to come and commission you?
The instrument, because of its complexity, is quite often brought in stages. You would normally start with what they call a practice set. Chanter, the bag and the bellow, so you can learn to play a few tunes. Then you add the drones in. Once you've got comfortable with that instrument, you would then add the regulators to bring it up to what they call a full set.
So my full set would cost me?
To go straight to a full set, you're looking at £4,000 to £5,000.
Which, to be honest, seems incredible. Given all this work, I mean, how long does that... Have you broken it down per hour? That for you, that's a bit of a bargain.
I'd rather not, yes.
This has been a surprise. The instrument makers are remarkably skilled. Their vocation is almost monastic and the materials they use are expensive. Yet the beautiful instruments they create are affordable. One of Adam Doughty's koras can be yours for just £600. If you want a fine guitar made just for you, you may well be able to commission one from Victoria Hurley.
They're from 2,200.
And that gets you a completely custom-made, handmade, beautiful instrument.
Yeah. And we might want to upgrade from, say, mahogany to cocobolo. Anything from 2,200 up to about 4,000 is what you'd be looking at from me.
I sell my violins for £13,500, which is a lot if you compare it to a factory-made instrument from China or elsewhere. It's nothing if you compare it to a multi-million-pound Strad. In the end, the people who play my violins or my instruments, they're not deciding between a factory instrument and mine. They're deciding whether they've got the possibility of, having a Strad, which usually they don't, or whether they can have mine. Since the antique old Italian violins are priced in a way out of the normal musician's reach, this is by far the best deal. Many still second-rate old Italian instruments between £10,000 and £200,000 who still don't sound very good. People try to reach them, so in a way at 13,000. Yeah.
Cellist Raphael Wallfisch and violinist Jens Lynen were so taken with Andreas Hudelmayer's instruments that, although they'd never previously met, they wanted to play them together right there in his Clerkenwell workshop, surrounded by maples, spruce and ebony, and the walls hung with clamps, saws and gouges, tools used since the days of Stradivarius. And after all his painstaking effort building these instruments, Andreas was quite understandably clearly moved as they filled his workshop with music.
It's those moments when you hear it really played well and you hear fantastic music being played on your instrument. Think, yeah, this is why I'm doing this.